Front row at Paris Fashion Week, Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, attempts to chat with Hollywood royalty and gets brutally, publicly ignored. But this cold shoulder was just the opening act in a whirlwind of PR disasters. From laughing at a falling model to a tasteless insult to Princess Diana's memory,
as she went past the tunnel in which Diana Spencer was so tragically killed.
This trip was a masterclass in how not to win over the public. But the real story isn't just what happened in Paris, it's about the one person who might have been watching it all unfold with a smirk. Stick with us as we break down every excruciating moment of Meghan's Paris nightmare and reveal why Prince Harry might just be the one getting the last laugh. To understand the scale of this disaster, you have to understand the stakes. This wasn't just a trip, it was a statement. After 3 years away from Europe since the somber occasion of Queen Elizabeth's funeral, Meghan Markle was making her grand re-entrance. And not just anywhere, but at Paris Fashion Week, the absolute apex of global style and influence, a place where image is everything and every move is scrutinized. Her arrival was a surprise, a headline-making appearance no one saw coming, teased to her followers with a cryptic Instagram story showing her walking across a luxurious marble floor set to the French track Viens en Essai. This was her first time at the final week of Fashion Month in more than a decade, a clear signal that the Duchess was re-engaging with the world of high fashion, but this time entirely on her own terms. To execute this relaunch, she came armed with a meticulously curated wardrobe, a visual uniform of power and intent. For the main event, the Balenciaga show, she wore an all-white custom ensemble, a crisp, silky button-down shirt, wide-leg trousers, and a dramatic floor-grazing cape draped over her shoulders like a modern-day royal stole. It was a look one publication described as boardroom-class chic with royal red carpet grace. This wasn't just an outfit, it was armor, designed to project an aura of purity, authority, and untouchable elegance. Later that evening for the after-party, she switched to a second caped look, a sophisticated sleeveless black Balenciaga gown, reinforcing the theme of controlled, minimalist power. Her official mission in Paris was to support her friend and collaborator, Pier Paolo Piccioli, who had recently taken the helm as the new creative director for the legendary fashion house. This framed her not as a mere celebrity spectator, but as a fashion insider, a power player moving amongst her peers. She was there, as one outlet put it, to steal the show. But this calculated appearance was more than just a fashion statement. Meghan's return to Europe for a high-profile fashion event, rather than a family gathering or a traditional royal engagement, represents a deliberate soft power play. The royal family's influence is institutional, rooted in centuries of tradition and national duty. Having stepped away from that framework, the Sussexes need a new source of power and global relevance. The world of high fashion, as the media's intense focus on celebrity front rows demonstrates, is an alternative global power structure. It operates on influence, image, and celebrity currency. By making her first European appearance in years at Paris Fashion Week, Meghan was choosing to operate in this new court, a court where she can be a front-row royal on her own terms without needing the approval or protocol of Buckingham Palace. It was a strategic pivot from the constraints of royal duty to the fluid world of celebrity influence. However, this strategy came with a glaring and paradoxical risk. Her choice to so publicly align with Balenciaga was a high-stakes gamble that revealed a potential blind spot in her brand management. While it linked her to a top-tier luxury house, it also tied her to a brand still reeling from a massive global scandal. In 2022, Balenciaga ignited worldwide outrage for an advertising campaign that featured small children holding teddy bear handbags dressed in what was widely interpreted as bondage-inspired accessories. The campaign was condemned for blurring moral boundaries and exploiting the imagery of children. This becomes a significant problem when you consider the core mission of the Archewell Foundation, which Meghan and Harry co-founded. A cornerstone of their philanthropic work is protecting children from online harms and fighting against predatory social media policies. By enthusiastically supporting Balenciaga, Meghan created a direct and unavoidable contradiction between her public advocacy for children's safety and her commercial associations. For critics, this wasn't just a fashion choice, it was an unforced error that provided concrete evidence to accuse her of hypocrisy, undermining the very causes she claims to champion and suggesting a profound disconnect between her brand ambitions and her ethical commitments. She had the look, she had the front row seat next to fashion mogul Anna Wintour, but from the moment the show started, the carefully constructed image of regal poise began to crack. This wasn't a smooth, flawless performance. It was a series of clumsy, awkward, and deeply revealing moments that quickly went viral for all the wrong reasons. The first crack in the facade came with a stumble. As a model walked the runway, she momentarily lost her footing. The cameras, naturally, were trained on the A-list front row, and they captured Meghan's reaction in excruciating detail. Footage shows the Duchess gasping, briefly covering her mouth with her hand, before turning to her close friend, Soho House executive Marcus Anderson, and laughing. What made the moment even more awkward was Anderson's reaction, or lack thereof. He remained completely impassive, staring straight ahead, which only served to highlight Meghan's seemingly inappropriate mirth. Of course, her team immediately went into damage control. A representative insisted she was not, in fact, laughing at the model's misfortune. Instead, they claimed she was simply reacting to a moment shared with a friend. But the damage was done. The clip exploded online, with critics accusing her of displaying poor etiquette and seizing on it as proof of a pre-existing narrative that she is a mean girl. The hashtag Meghan Markle is a mean girl even began to circulate. It was a visual that was visceral, immediate, and very difficult to explain away, playing directly into the hands of her detractors. If the giggle was a crack, the next moment was a chasm opening up right beside her on the front row. In what has now been dubbed the snub, behind-the-scenes video appeared to capture Meghan attempting to make conversation with the acclaimed actress Dame Kristin Scott-Thomas. In the clip, Meghan leans in, appearing to chat, only for the actress to seemingly turn her head away mid-conversation, ending the interaction abruptly. To understand the weight of this moment, you have to understand who Dame Kristin Scott-Thomas is. She isn't just another actress. She is a pillar of the British establishment. She received her damehood from the late Queen Elizabeth II in 2015 and even portrayed the monarch on stage in the celebrated play The Audience. She is described as a close acquaintance of the royal family. Therefore, this wasn't just an awkward social moment between two celebrities. For observers and critics, it was seen as a symbolic rejection of Meghan by someone firmly within the royal family's orbit. It was a visual representation of the cold shoulder Meghan has received from the institution she and Harry so publicly left behind. It was the old guard turning its back, quite literally, on the New World Royal. The series of unfortunate events continued. While minor on their own, they added to the cumulative picture of a trip where nothing seemed to go as smoothly as planned. When greeting the man of the hour, designer Pier Paolo Piccioli, what was meant to be a chic European air kiss turned into a clumsy collision. The two went in for the greeting but misjudged the angle, knocking their faces and sunglasses together in a cringe-worthy moment captured by photographers. Body language expert Judy James later analyzed the interaction, noting that it was actually Piccioli who got way too close, creating the cringe moment for Meghan. Another expert, Inbal Honigman, described Meghan's overall demeanor at the event as a mixture of awkwardness and defiance. The awkwardness didn't end there. As she left the venue, her confident, sweeping strut, likely intended to project power and control, became the subject of gentle mockery online. Social media users quickly drew comparisons between her dramatic walk and the satirical runway strut of Ben Stiller's clueless male model character Derek Zoolander. These moments, while less severe, painted a picture of someone trying very hard to appear effortlessly cool and in command, but the execution was just slightly off, adding to the narrative that this was a trip defined by missteps. To see it all laid out, the pattern becomes undeniable. Each incident fed into the next, creating a perfect storm of bad press. For the incident of Meghan giggling at the stumbling model, the official narrative was that she was simply reacting to a private moment with a friend, but the public and critical interpretation saw it as poor etiquette, a mean girl moment that confirmed negative biases. For the so-called snub by Dame Kristin Scott-Thomas, there was no official comment, but it was seen as a symbolic rejection by a royal family ally, representing the institutional cold shoulder. The awkward air kiss with the designer was explained as a clumsy moment initiated by him, but it was seen by others as a sign of general awkwardness and trying too hard to perform for the cameras. And finally, her walk, intended to be confident and powerful, was mocked as performative, ridiculous, and out of touch. But all of those front-row fumbles, all the snubs and awkward encounters, would be completely overshadowed by a single, bewilderingly tasteless post on Instagram. A post that critics say was a deliberate and cruel insult to the memory of Prince Harry's mother, Princess Diana. During her time in the city, Meghan shared a short video to her Instagram stories. The clip showed her perspective from inside a chauffeur-driven car at night. She then turned the camera to show her own feet, clad in expensive heels, propped up and resting on the seat in front of her as the car moved through Paris. It was a casual, relaxed, almost self-congratulatory moment, but it was the location that turned it into an international scandal. Her car was traveling along a route just moments away from the Pont Alma tunnel. For anyone who lived through the 1990s, that name is instantly recognizable and chilling. It is the exact site where Princess Diana was killed in a horrific car crash in 1997, a tragedy that traumatized a generation, and most profoundly her two young sons. It is sacred ground, a place of immense pain and trauma for Prince Harry. The public outrage was immediate and visceral. The casualness of the post, the relaxed feet-up posture in a location so deeply associated with his mother's violent death, was seen as the ultimate act of disrespect. The backlash was ferocious, with comments calling it insensitive beyond belief. Talk about purposely inflicting additional trauma and unnecessary PTSD on your husband. And Meghan just trashed Princess Diana's memory. And perhaps the most damning, she is either a complete moron or evil, no other option. The Sussex camp did issue a response, with a source telling Newsweek that critics had chosen to draw the most tenuous link between the post and Diana's death, and that making such a link was, in itself, the insensitive bit. But this defense did little to quell the fire. Tellingly, Meghan later shared a separate highlights reel of her Paris trip, featuring shots of the Arc de Triomphe and her preparations with her makeup artist. The controversial driving clip was notably absent, an omission that critics interpreted as a tacit admission of guilt. This incident reveals the incredibly complex and dual-edged nature of Princess Diana's legacy for Meghan. On one hand, Meghan's supporters frequently draw comparisons between her and her late mother-in-law. They see parallels in their star power, their humanitarian instincts, and their persecution by the press, framing Meghan as a modern-day Diana who managed to escape the institution that Diana could not. This comparison is a powerful part of her brand. However, this dynamic creates an impossibly high standard. For her critics, Diana's memory is the ultimate yardstick against which Meghan's every action is measured. Any perceived disrespect is viewed not just as a simple gaffe, but as a profound moral failing. The Instagram story provided these critics with their most powerful weapon yet. The visual of Meghan's casual, self-focused feet-up moment in a location of such immense public and private tragedy created a jarring contrast with Diana's legacy of selfless duty and sacrifice. The backlash, therefore, wasn't just about a lapse in judgment, it was about Meghan failing the Diana test in the most spectacular and public way imaginable. It allowed her detractors to frame her as the antithesis of Diana, self-absorbed where Diana was selfless, disrespectful where Diana was revered, and tasteless where Diana was the epitome of grace. The world was furious on Harry's behalf. The media exploded with headlines about the disrespect shown to his mother's memory. But back in Montecito, was the prince himself actually furious, or was he amused? To understand why Harry might have found this whole Parisian circus darkly funny, you have to look at the cracks that have been forming in the Sussexes' united front for months. For some time now, reports have been swirling that the couple is leading increasingly separate lives. Insiders suggest they are pursuing a twin-track approach to their careers, with Meghan focusing on launching her new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, and potentially restarting her Hollywood career, while Harry dedicates himself to his philanthropic work and global causes. This isn't just speculation, the evidence is in their schedules. Prince Harry has embarked on a series of high-profile solo trips throughout 2025. In July, he traveled to Angola to continue his mother's vital work with the Halo Trust, walking through landmine fields just as she did decades ago. In October, he was in New York for events with the men's health charity Movember and to receive an award from Project Healthy Minds. He even made a solo trip to Shanghai for a conference on sustainable travel. These aren't just routine work trips. They are being framed by sources as a pattern of him seeking personal space and relishing his independence. One royal expert even told The Sun that Harry wants more fulfilling roles for himself and has been feeling like a spare part in their shared life. This growing divergence has reportedly come to a head over their holiday plans. A major rift is rumored to have formed over Christmas. Harry is said to be keen to spend the holiday season in the UK, not with the royal family, but with his late mother's family, the Spencers, at their ancestral home of Althorpe. However, Meghan is reportedly reluctant to travel to the UK, citing ongoing security concerns. This disagreement has been described by sources as a potential real turning point in their marriage, a fundamental clash over their connection to Harry's past and his homeland. So, with that context, let's play out a scenario. You have a prince who reportedly feels sidelined, who has, according to one source, given up so much for this marriage: his family, his home, friends, a man who is desperate to reconnect with his roots and is allegedly being blocked by his wife. Now imagine him watching from California as that same wife, on a solo mission to cement her own global icon status, stumbles from one unforced error to the next in a spectacular flameout. From that perspective, this trip could be seen as a moment of karmic justice. She gets snubbed by a royal-adjacent actress. Funny, it's a small taste of the institutional cold shoulder he's been living with for years. She gets mocked for trying too hard to look like a supermodel with a Zoolander walk. Ironic. He has been relentlessly criticized for being dragged into her Hollywood-centric world, a world he often seems uncomfortable in. And the grand finale, she makes a massive self-inflicted catastrophic blunder involving his own mother's memory. Darkly hilarious. It's the kind of tone-deaf mistake that prioritizes an Instagram moment over genuine substance, the very thing he has likely warned her about 100 times. This isn't just about a few gaffes, it speaks to a fundamental divergence of paths. Harry's solo ventures are consistently linked to his past and his legacy, his military service, his mother's humanitarian work in Angola, and his deep desire for a UK Christmas with his family. He seems to be looking backward to find his future purpose. Meghan's ventures, in contrast, are forward-looking and rooted in her pre-royal identity, Hollywood deals, lifestyle branding, and the world of celebrity culture, epitomized by her appearance at Paris Fashion Week. The rumored Christmas standoff is the perfect symbol of this clash, his desire to go home versus her refusal to return. Therefore, when her solo venture into her world of high fashion results in a PR disaster centered on disrespecting a key part of his world, his mother's legacy, it creates a powerful, ironic narrative. For a frustrated Prince Harry, watching this unfold wouldn't just be watching a series of mistakes. It could feel like a validation that her way isn't working, and that perhaps his way, one of more substance, legacy, and quiet dignity, is the correct one. His amusement wouldn't stem from malice, but from the grim satisfaction of being proven right. So what are we left with? A trip that was meant to be a triumphant return to the world stage ended in public humiliation, a series of self-inflicted wounds that have damaged not just Meghan's personal reputation, but the entire brand Sussex they've worked so hard to build since stepping back from the royal family. The damage is multifaceted. The social awkwardness, from the giggle to the snub, painted her as out of her depth, or worse, unkind. The hypocrisy of championing children's online safety while simultaneously promoting a brand like Balenciaga provided her critics with an easy and legitimate line of attack. And the Ponte Alma controversy was a catastrophic, unforced error that alienated even those who might have been sympathetic, touching the third rail of royal discourse, the memory of Princess Diana. As always, the public reaction remains deeply polarized. For her loyal supporters, this entire episode is just another example of her being a victim of a relentless and biased media machine, a modern Diana unfairly scrutinized for every move she makes. They argue that any other celebrity would have been given the benefit of the doubt. For her critics, however, this trip was a deeply revealing look at the real Meghan, someone they see as narcissistic, clumsy, and profoundly out of touch with public sentiment. This leaves us with a series of crucial unanswered questions. Was this a calculated campaign of disrespect, a series of deliberate provocations, or was it just a string of incredibly bad luck, poor judgment, and a complete lack of situational awareness? Does this disastrous trip strengthen Prince Harry's hand in their reported power struggle, giving him leverage to pull them back towards a life of more substance and less celebrity? Or will they simply close ranks, deny everything, and pretend it never happened? And most importantly, after a week of snubs, gaffes, and scandals, can brand Sussex survive this level of self-sabotage? This story is far from over. What do you think? Was Meghan unfairly targeted in Paris, or did she get exactly what she deserved? And do you buy the theory that Harry was secretly laughing at the whole mess? Drop your verdict in the comments below. And if you want more deep dives that break down the stories everyone is talking about, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for all notifications. You won't want to miss what's coming next.